Today, I'm going to try and raise your language the way that Wuthering Waves actually works. Because it's actually pretty complicated, whether you know it or not. There's a lot here, especially when you compare it to something like Genshin Impact. There is so much. So let's start simple. Over here, we have our Resonance Liberation, Echo Skill, Skill, and Gadget, which isn't important right now. But your skill is essentially, well, it's your skill ability. I hope you at least know what that means. And your Echo skill is a special skill that's based off of whatever Echo you're running in the first slot on your build, which is right up here somewhere. I'll circle it for you. Or it's just your Pokemon summon, for short. And your Liberation is your character's ultimate. For simplicity's sake, let's all just call it an ultimate. I don't know why they had to go be fancy and call it a Resonance Liberation. Now over here is where you might get a little bit confused, because this meter in the middle is the most important part of the entire game, and it's called your Forte Circuit Meter. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, but essentially all this is your character's passive, and I use that word very loosely, but that's pretty much all this is. But here's the thing, every single character in the game reacts to this meter differently, and this meter reacts to every single character in the game differently. So it's like, there's not really a simple way to describe this. So if you want to understand this, read this part of your main's kit and hopefully it makes sense. Now to the left of that, there's another meter that you may or may not have even known existed. Have you ever heard of something called concerto energy? Because if you have, that's what this meter means. And no, I have no idea why they decided to call it that, but this can simply be explained as your intro meter. When it's full, you can intro skill, which if you didn't know is just a fancy character switch mechanic, which is why this meter is probably the second most important meter in the game, because intro skilling in Wuthering Waves is kind of a really big part of your rotations. However, a very small few number of characters react to this meter differently, because why not? Like Camellia, for example, but that is a whole nother video in itself. So to raise your language this real quick, we have skill, Pokemon summon, ultimate, weird passive meter, fancy switch, and fancy switch meter. That's all I got.